25 years ago this week, John Denver when the plane he was piloting plunged into the waters off the California coast. He was 53 years old.
For more than 30 years, John Denver amazed the world with his soft voice, touching songs, and friendly, down-to-earth personality. People saw him as the perfect, kind-hearted singer, sharing stories of mountains, roads, and love. But behind the happy face, the music, and the packed concerts, another side of his life was quietly happening, one no one really knew. The pain, the mistakes, the private struggles that shaped him were hidden from everyone. Now, for the first time, the truth about John Denver's secret life is being revealed. Who was the real John Denver behind the music? Join us in this video as we reveal the details. The double life John Denver lived no one knew until now. John Denver, born Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. on December 31, 1943, in Roswell, New Mexico, grew up in a military family. His father, Henry Dutch Deutschendorf Sr., was a pilot in the United States Air Force. Because of his father's job, the family moved frequently from one military base to another. This meant that Denver never stayed in one place for long. He had to change schools often and could not form long-lasting friendships. The constant moving made him feel like he never truly belonged anywhere. Despite the strict rules and discipline of a military household, music became an important comfort for him. His grandmother gave him his first guitar, which opened a small world of joy amid the structured life he had. As a teenager, he spent long hours alone, learning chords and melodies from folk and country music. These early experiences with music became his private way of expressing himself and finding peace. Eventually, Denver's family settled in Texas, and he attended Texas Tech University. Over time, he realized that music was more important to him than school. He decided to leave college to follow his dream of becoming a singer and songwriter. This was a risky choice because he had no reputation, no contract, and no clear path to success. He left Texas with only his guitar and a few songs he had written, and moved to California, where many young folk musicians were trying to build careers. It was there that he chose the name John Denver. He picked this name because of the strong impression the Rocky Mountains of Colorado had left on him, and to create a new identity for himself as he began performing in the crowded folk music scene. In 1965, Denver received his first major opportunity when he joined the Mitchell Trio, replacing founding member Chad Mitchell. This was his first real step into the music industry. Touring with the group, he traveled to many cities across the United States and learned how to perform for different audiences. These performances were not always glamorous, but they helped him gain confidence and experience as a professional musician. Between performances, Denver kept writing songs in a small notebook. One of these songs, Leaving on a Jet Plane, would later become famous when recorded by Peter, Paul, and Mary, reaching #1 on the Billboard charts and helping Denver gain recognition as a talented songwriter. John Denver's music style became well known for being gentle and heartfelt. He focused on acoustic guitar, soft melodies, and lyrics about nature, love, and simple living. His songs often painted pictures of peaceful landscapes and quiet life, which made listeners feel connected to the places and emotions he sang about. Even as he became more famous, Denver's music stayed true to these simple, honest qualities. His performances were always warm and sincere, drawing audiences into a personal experience even when performed for large crowds. This style made him different from other artists who used more electric instruments or flashy production. Besides music, Denver cared deeply about issues of freedom and responsibility. In 1985, he spoke before the United States Senate against the parental advisory label system. He worried that warning labels on albums could limit artists' freedom and make people judge their work before hearing it. Denver argued that music should be free to reach audiences without barriers. He also used his music to raise awareness about social and environmental issues. Through his songs, he wanted to encourage people to care for the world and think about their responsibilities to nature and society. In summary, John Denver's life shows the combination of talent, hard work, and personal values. His early experiences with a moving military family shaped his character and gave him a love for music as a private refuge. Leaving college to follow music was a bold step, leading him to California and the start of a professional career. His gentle, heartfelt style of music won him many fans, and his dedication to principles like freedom of expression and social awareness showed that his influence went beyond just songs. John Denver is remembered not only as a singer and songwriter, but also as a person who cared about the world and stayed true to his values. How did a young man with little more than a guitar and a dream transform into one of the most beloved voices in music history? Keep watching for more details. The rise of John Denver, music, fame, and personal struggles. John Denver's journey as a musician began in a very humble and quiet way. He started by performing in small clubs and folk venues. These were places where only a few people would gather to listen to music. He moved from city to city, often with very little money, trying to find someone who would notice his talent. Life on the road was not easy. He had to deal with long hours, poor living conditions, and constant uncertainty about whether his music would ever reach a bigger audience. Every day was a struggle, but he never gave up. Early in his career, John Denver joined a group called the Mitchell Trio. He replaced one of the original members. This gave him a chance to perform in front of more people than ever before. It was a big step for him. Being part of the group taught him how to handle the stage, how to connect with the audience, and how to manage life as a working musician. But even with this experience, true recognition still felt far away. He kept writing songs, hoping that one day someone would listen and understand his music. A song that changed everything for him was "Leaving on a Jet Plane." It was quiet, emotional, and full of feeling. It spoke about leaving, about missing someone, and about longing. The song was eventually recorded by Peter, Paul, and Mary. When it became a hit, the world started to notice John Denver, the songwriter. For the first time, his talent was recognized on a large scale. People began to see that he was not just another musician, but someone with a special way of writing music that could touch hearts. After that success, John Denver began to focus on his own albums. He worked hard in studios and on stage, creating music that felt personal, gentle, and full of meaning. Songs like "Take Me Home, Country Roads" quickly made him famous worldwide. That song spoke about home, about comfort, and about a place that made people feel safe. Millions of people loved it, even though the state mentioned in the song, West Virginia, was not where John Denver grew up. The emotion in his voice made everyone feel the song belonged to them. While his public life seemed perfect, his private life was more complicated. John Denver married Annie Martell, and their love story inspired one of his most famous songs, Annie's Song. To the world, it looked like a fairy tale, full of joy and beauty, but the demands of his music career created distance between them. Long tours, recording sessions, and public appearances often kept him away from home. This separation created tension and challenges in their marriage. Close friends later said that John Denver lived a double life: the public figure adored by millions, and the private man dealing with loneliness, stress, and emotional highs and lows. During these years, John Denver also became interested in causes bigger than music. He wanted to help people and protect the planet. He worked with organizations like UNICEF and co-founded the WinStar Foundation. These efforts focused on the environment, sustainability, and helping those in need. He believed that artists had a responsibility to do more than entertain. They could make a positive impact on the world. However, not everyone agreed with him. Some people in the music business thought his activism was controversial. They worried it might hurt his career. Still, he continued to speak up for what he believed in, even if it meant facing criticism. Even as fame and success surrounded him, could John Denver balance the demands of his career with the struggles and passions that defined his private life? Stay tuned for more. Later life, aviation, and lasting legacy. As time went on, the music world started to change. New types of music, younger singers, and pop and rock trends slowly took attention away from John Denver's soft folk songs. Even though he kept writing and singing, he was no longer as popular as he had been. This was hard for him. For someone who had been one of the biggest stars in the world, it was not easy to get used to less attention and praise. At the same time, John Denver's personal life went through big problems. His marriage to Annie ended in 1982. This was a very painful time for him. The man who had written one of the most famous love songs now had to face the end of the love that inspired it. He married again later, but the pain from this first breakup stayed with him. Love and relationships were very important to him, but they also brought struggles because his public life took so much of his time and energy. Later in life, John Denver found a new love: flying. Being in the air gave him a sense of freedom that he rarely felt on the ground. Flying let him escape the pressure of fame, the eyes of the public, and the constant demands from everyone. Flying was more than a hobby for him. It was a spiritual experience. He felt close to the wide landscapes he loved, and the sky became a place to be alone with his thoughts. Sadly, this love for flying also led to his death. In October 1997, John Denver was flying a small experimental plane near Monterey Bay, California. The plane crashed into the water, and he died right away. The world was shocked. Fans everywhere were sad to lose someone who had given comfort, joy, and inspiration through music for so many years. Even after his death, John Denver's work has continued to touch people. His songs, his help for others, and his life story show that he was a man with both public praise and private struggles. He was a dreamer, a kind person, and a talented artist. His songs about love, nature, and home still reach millions of people. His life shows how fame can bring both joy and difficulty, and how important it is to follow your passions, whether in music, helping others, or flying. If John Denver's music and good works made him so loved and successful, how did his struggles with alcohol, substance, and legal problems start to shape the life behind the happy public image? Let's find out. Career triumphs and personal struggles. John Denver was a singer and songwriter who became one of the most famous and loved artists of his time. He was known for combining pop, folk, and country music in a way that felt natural and heartfelt. His voice was soft, clear, and gentle, which made listeners feel like he was speaking directly to them. Through his music, he shared stories about love, nature, and the simple joys of life. From the beginning of his career, Denver worked very hard. He also visited radio stations to play his music live, often promoting himself directly. This persistence helped him slowly build a fan base and establish his place in the music world. His first major breakthrough came when his song "Leaving on a Jet Plane" was recorded by the popular folk group Peter, Paul, and Mary. The song topped the charts and introduced Denver's songwriting talent to a large audience. This success opened doors for him to record albums under professional labels, perform on bigger stages, and reach a wider audience. By the early 70s, John Denver's career reached new heights. He released albums that contained songs full of imagery, emotion, and personal reflection. "Take Me Home," Country Roads became a universal anthem about longing for home, even though he was not from West Virginia. His other songs, like "Rocky Mountain High" and "Sunshine on My Shoulders," continued to build his reputation as a singer who could touch hearts with music that felt honest and sincere. Television appearances, specials, and live concerts increased his visibility. He even had his own show on the BBC and hosted holiday specials that were watched by millions. His popularity earned him numerous awards, including Grammy Awards and American Music Awards, confirming his place as one of the most influential artists of his generation. Alongside his music, Denver cared deeply about humanitarian and environmental causes. He believed that artists should use their fame to help others. He took part in many charity projects, including fundraising for schools for the deaf and local hospitals. He created the WinStar Land Conservancy in Aspen, Colorado, which became both a home and a sanctuary for wildlife. The conservancy also served as a place to educate people about nature and environmental protection. Denver's commitment to these causes showed that his interests went beyond entertainment. He wanted to make a positive impact on the world around him. Despite these successes, Denver faced many personal struggles. Over the the years, he developed problems with alcohol and substance use. He admitted to using marijuana and LSD, particularly during his creative processes. These substances were connected to his artistic expression, but they also created challenges in his personal life. Alcohol, in particular, caused legal trouble. In 1992, he was charged with drunk driving for the first time. The following year, he pleaded guilty to a second offense after crashing his car. As a result, he was placed on probation and required to stay sober. Yet these events began to affect other areas of his life as well. One area deeply affected by these struggles was his flying. John Denver was an experienced pilot and loved to fly, often saying that being in the air gave him peace and freedom. However, because of his legal problems with alcohol, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, intervened. They medically disqualified him from flying, citing safety concerns. Denver could no longer operate aircraft legally, which removed one of the few activities that gave him a sense of personal freedom and escape from the pressures of fame. Denver's life, therefore, contained two very different sides. Publicly, he was a beloved entertainer, a musical genius, and a devoted humanitarian. Privately, he wrestled with substance use, legal issues, and the loss of activities he loved, like flying. These struggles did not erase his achievements, but they added layers of complexity to his story. He remained dedicated to music and to helping others, even while dealing with personal difficulties that affected his health, his career, and his peace of mind. In the end, John Denver's legacy is a combination of brilliance and human vulnerability. His songs continue to resonate with audiences worldwide, reminding people of the beauty of life, love, and nature. At the same time, his personal struggles illustrate that even the most talented and successful individuals face challenges that are often hidden from public view. Denver's life shows how triumph and hardship can exist together, leaving a story that is both inspiring and profoundly human. Even the strongest beginnings can be tested when life moves faster than two people can keep up. How do you hold on when the world keeps pulling you apart? Let's delve deeper. Love, youth, and the burden of fame. John Denver and Annie Martell's marriage was one that began with hope, excitement, and the innocence of youth. They were both very young when they married, with John being 23 and Annie just 20. They barely knew themselves, let alone each other. The early years of their relationship were filled with small gestures of care, thoughtful letters, and quiet moments of connection. Before fame changed everything, their bond was simple, tender, and real. They were young people in love, learning slowly about life, learning slowly about each other, and learning about the ways two lives could intertwine. But the world outside their private life did not wait for them to grow. John Denver's career took off quickly. He became a public figure almost overnight. Concerts, albums, awards, media attention, and endless travel filled his days. While fans saw a gentle, romantic, and soulful musician, the reality at home was very different. Annie found herself standing behind a man who was no longer just the boy she had fallen in love with. He was now a star, admired by millions and consumed by the pressures of fame. The simple life they had hoped for was slowly replaced by red carpets, sold-out shows, and the demands of an audience that expected nothing less than perfection. The separation between them started small, almost imperceptible. Days apart turned into weeks, and weeks sometimes stretched into months. It was not only the physical distance that strained the relationship, but also the emotional distance. Letters and visits, which had once kept them close, could no longer bridge the growing gap. The connection that had once been natural became strained and fragile. Annie observed these changes quietly, understanding that the man she loved had changed. The love was still there, but it had to compete with the demands of fame, and those demands were relentless. During this time, John Denver's music reflected some of the emotions and struggles he faced. Songs that the public assumed were born purely from love were, in fact, often shaped by conflict, tension, and reconciliation. Annie described one song, long celebrated as a tender love ballad, as a product of emotional struggle rather than unbroken joy. It was written after an argument, after separation, and after reflection. It was raw, immediate, and full of feeling, but it came from the necessity of trying to repair something fragile. fragile, not from the carefree passion that fans assumed. The strain of fame, coupled with youth and inexperience, slowly began to unravel the intimacy of their marriage. Annie found herself fading quietly into the background, while John occupied the center of attention. She missed the quiet life of letters, walks, and simple routines. Instead, she was asked to endure long absences, to smile for cameras, to support a lifestyle that was not her own, and to watch the man she loved become consumed by the expectations of the world. The life they had envisioned together was slipping through their fingers, almost unnoticed at first, and yet with growing inevitability. Even amid the success and public admiration, the marriage faced moments of emotional intensity that were difficult to manage. Arguments, misunderstandings, and small betrayals accumulated, adding tension to an already delicate situation. Annie's perspective, shaped by youth, love, and a desire for stability, made these challenges all the more poignant. She observed the changes in John, saw the pressures he faced, and tried to navigate her own role in a life that no longer felt entirely her own. The early love they shared had been real, but it was now being tested by forces far beyond their control. By the early 80s, the relationship had grown volatile. Physical absence, emotional distance, and the constant pull of fame created a situation that neither of them could easily resolve. It was a marriage under strain, a love under pressure, and two people trying to find a place for themselves in the midst of success, expectation, and public scrutiny. What began as tender, careful love had become complicated, fragile, and in need of careful navigation, even in the simplest daily interactions. When the early sparks of love and shared dreams start to fade under the weight of fame, pressure, and distance, how does a relationship survive? Or does it survive at all? Let's learn more. Turmoil, adoption, and the path to healing. As the marriage slowly came to an end, the problems between them became easier to see and harder to ignore. There were moments that showed just how broken things had become. One of the most shocking moments was when John Denver used a chainsaw to destroy their bed. This was not just a symbol. It really happened, and it showed how much anger and pain he was feeling. It happened after Annie made a decision about some trees on their land in Aspen, a place John loved deeply. That land, the mountains, and nature meant a lot to him, and it was tied to both his life and their marriage. What seemed like a small decision caused a very strong reaction from him, showing how tense things had become between them. This moment with the chainsaw showed how deeply emotional he was. John was a man who could turn feelings into music, but at that time, he showed his pain in a physical way. It was part of a pattern during the breakup, where his emotions became harder to control. Annie later said those moments were painful and even scary, but she stayed calm. She did not go to the media or try to gain attention from it. Instead, she focused on understanding what was happening and protecting herself and her family. At the same time, they were also dealing with the pain of not being able to have children. This was a private struggle that people did not see. They both wanted children, and it was hard for them when it did not happen naturally. Instead of letting this break them further, they chose to adopt. Zachary and Anna Kate became a big part of Annie's life and gave her a new sense of purpose during a difficult time. The choice to adopt was not forced. It came from love, patience, and accepting things they could not change. After the divorce, Annie stayed in Aspen and focused on raising her children in a stable and loving home. She stayed away from drama and public attention. She did not remarry or look for fame. She also did not let anger affect how she raised her children. Because of her steady approach, her children grew up with love and support, even after all the challenges. John Denver's second marriage to Cassandra Delaney was very different. They got married in 1988, but divorced in 1993. Their relationship had many ups and downs and was more public. It showed some of the same struggles he had before, including emotional tension and control issues. This made Annie's quiet and calm way of handling things stand out even more. In the end, Annie Martell's story shows strength and patience. She went through pain, big emotional moments, and divorce, but she stayed focused on her children and her own life. She handled everything with care and dignity. Even years later, she still showed understanding and balance when looking back. Their story shows how love, fame, and personal struggles can mix in complex ways. It shows how life can be both beautiful and difficult at the same time. Annie's side of the story reminds us that strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and focused on moving forward. If John Denver's strong energy, bold nature, and quick decisions shaped his life, how did those same traits affect the choices he made in his final days and lead to the flight that ended his life? Let's take a closer look. John Denver. Life, character, and tragic flight. John Denver was a man full of energy, life, and courage. He lived his life in a very active way, always doing things that tested his body and his mind. He loved hiking, skiing, and flying. These were not just things he did for fun. They were things he truly loved. He enjoyed being outdoors and trying new things. He liked to push himself, even when it was risky. People who knew him often said he looked happiest when he was outside, busy, and enjoying life. He was open, real, and honest. He did not try to act like someone else. What people saw was who he really was. His early life helped shape this part of him. His father was a skilled Air Force pilot, and John learned a lot from him. He learned to be brave and to face challenges with strength. Even when he had an accident as a child and lost 2 toes, it did not stop him. Instead, it became part of his story. He stayed active and strong. He kept his body in good shape by staying busy with outdoor activities. This helped him do things that many people would not try. Even with all these strong qualities, John also had a habit of acting quickly without thinking things through. He sometimes made fast choices without thinking about what could go wrong. This showed in both his personal life and his work. He had to deal with family problems, relationship issues, and changes in his career. Still, he kept moving forward, living each day with excitement, even when he should have been more careful. Flying was one place where all these traits came together. John was a skilled pilot with many hours of experience. He loved flying and felt free when he was in the air. He treated flying with the same confidence he had in other parts of his life. But his interest in trying new things led him to fly an experimental plane. This kind of plane needed extra care and attention. Even though he had experience, the plane was not familiar, and the controls were not clearly marked. This made the situation risky. Still, he chose to fly it, showing both his confidence and his habit of taking risks. In the last days of his life, John had both happy and stressful moments. He spent time with people close to him and took part in normal activities, but he was also dealing with personal problems. These included family matters and work struggles. On the day of his last flight, the weather was calm and clear. Nothing seemed wrong at first, but during the flight, the plane crashed into the ocean. He died in that crash. People who looked into the accident said that many things may have played a part. His flying experience, his quick decisions, and the difficulty of flying a new plane all mattered. John Denver's life showed both strength and risk. He was brave and full of life, but he also made choices that could put him in danger. In the end, it was a mix of his bold nature, his fast decisions, and the situation around him that led to his death. It is still hard to say how much was his choice and how much was a chance. What do you think about the two sides of John Denver's life? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for following the story of John Denver, from his rise as a music legend and adventurous spirit to the challenges he faced in his personal life and final days. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to explore more stories. See you there.